Alright, this is August 18th. We are at the Psychic and Metaphysical Fair here in Marion, Iowa. It's actually a pretty good turnout here. We have our booth here, as you can see. Big Daddy here made it here too as well. So it's a pretty good turnout. Should be a good time.
Paranormal endeavors. Eric is a paranormal investigator with kind of a little different twist. A lot of the things that you see on TV now kind of really focus totally on the scientific and don't necessarily go into the spiritual aspect of ghost hunting. And Eric and his team have also incorporated that into what they do. So Eric is going to give you a little information about what they do and show you maybe some of the information from their DVD that they made. So Eric Klein.
Thank you.
To the library, or is it just not loading?
It's taking forever to load. I just wanted to make sure it loaded up and I can pause it. If something always goes wrong, it's usually technical related. And that's usually my experiences. Last presentation I had, we didn't really have any good sound, and so nobody could hear it. So it's usually something, and as much as we'd like to blame the spooks, you know, it's probably not always their fault.
So it did bring my camera in here earlier.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I'll let it kind of do this thing. It plays great. It's kind of a minor thing to the whole thing. All right, as she said, I'm Eric. I'm actually a leader of Paranormal Endeavors, which is a group founded in March of 2010. And we do the spiritual and scientific part of the research. Because we figured it was time to do something like that, because there's so many groups out there that only do one half of that, and unfortunately that automatically, even if it doesn't mean to, it shuts out the other aspects of research. Because when you're working with spirit, there's more to it than just working with the science part of the investigation. You know, and science doesn't have all the answers for everything still. Paranormal really hasn't even, it's getting there. Maybe someday it will be, but it's not even really in mainstream science yet. And hopefully with some new tactics of research like this gizmo here and some other ideas, we'll catch on and we'll investigate and actually do more than just what's in mainstream right now. Investigate more things like investigate the air above us, so underneath the water below us, which both those things actually are very possible. And I've investigated it, sent a version of this in the air and got an EVP, what sounds like saying get out, from about 70 yards above us. So that leads to believe it's like, okay, well, why wouldn't it? You know, because gravity doesn't really matter or play a role anymore because the physical body is not there. So I have one for underwater, which I'm looking forward to doing here soon to see if activity also may exist underwater. Because I've always had a fascination with shipwrecks and stuff, in particular Titanic as well. And I know that's at bone-crushing depths, but I always thought it'd be neat to investigate that ship because there's still spirits that are there. I strongly believe that too. Okay, let me start over a few of these things here, especially if you're interested in starting a group or getting affiliated with a group that that may not know much about protection and stuff like that. When you're dealing with spirit, not all of them are, I use the metaphor, you know, grandma knocking on the fridge. You know, they're not all individuals that you may have known. When you're going into a place, especially a public place or a place that you don't know, whether it's a client's house or something like that, they can only tell you what they are experiencing. Doesn't mean that there's something, you know, that's, there might be something dormant, something there that you might overlook, and that can sometimes be costly and affect you, whether psychologically mentally, physically too. If you go into a place and you could get scratched or something like that. So it's always important. I always, with my team, bring my paranormal bag here that I have with kind of, it's been nicknamed the bag of tricks. I have some of these I use as well, and these I've used not just with spirit but on other investigators if they start getting anxiety attacks or they start, something affects them to where they're not feeling quite themselves. They're still maintaining a good mindset to be there, but they need to be purified just a little bit, and these are really good. You get these at most metaphysical stores. They are Reiki charged candles you can use. You can use them for meditation as well. Just out of curiosity, how many of you know what Reiki is or been working with that or worked with energies and stuff like that? Okay, good. So you're familiar then with that concept. You're probably familiar with stones, crystals, and gems as well. Okay, because you use those and they line up with the different chakras of the body and whatnot. And some people use them, to heal themselves like that. I always encourage, especially when you're working with spirit, to make time to meditate. When you're working with spirit, especially being empathic, that accumulates. And over time, it will wear you out. You'll be drained. It actually can influence depression. Most people don't know this, but most of the psychics and sensitives and mediums in the world are actually depressed. And that's actually part and due with that, but also those that give readings and stuff like that. They're picking up energy from the living person that they're doing the reading for. That's why so many of us and friends that I know, if we do psychic readings or something like that, there's only so much we can do. Might be able to do a gallery reading, or a gallery reading is kind of like how John Edwards did in Crossing Over, if any of you remember that. It'd just be like this, and they'd be like, okay, so there's a woman with you, her name's Nancy, and then the woman would be like, yes, that's my aunt, that's how they do it with that. But that can wear you down too, but especially the one-on-one interaction where you get more in depth with them about loved ones or people have messages for them, it really drains you out, and so it's really good to meditate. One question I've gotten a lot, how do you meditate, or how should I start out meditating? Well, the same way doesn't work for everybody. You got to figure out in a way what works best for you. Because you do this, and I can tell you how I do it. It might not work for you. You might not get the best out of it. I know that some of the soundtracks I do as well, because I do all my own music for documentaries and whatnot, partly to avoid those copyright infringements. But we do that, and it's based off of locations that have inspired me and places I've been, and I can see or hear the music at the place, and I go back and I then compose that out. And so all the soundtracks are very rich in sound, moving. Some of the stuff actually gives me chills, and some of my friends chills. Good chills, like goosebumps, not of the eerie kind, but there's some songs that give that too. But sometimes music is good for that, and it can help you meditate. So these are good to use for that as well. Okay, another thing that we use here as well. Some of our clients have requested cleansings be done of the property. Once they have the investigation done, we do the investigation, and they want something done with it. They want it gone, or they want it to be moved on to where it needs to be. This stuff is possible, but it's always good to mention, like for us, we cannot guarantee it. We tell the client flat out, cannot guarantee that it will be gone permanently if we do this for you. And we gotta make sure that they understand that, because if their hopes are, okay, it's gone for good now, it might be for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, then it could come back. It might come back lessened activity, like not as much, There are some that so far I followed up on and they haven't reported anything again. So those ones to us are complete successes. But if you completely want it gone and stuff like that, it's easier said than done. A lot of these spirits are there for a reason, and the energy from sage, or if you smudge a house, can be there, and it can actually purify that environment for a certain amount of time, and then once that is gone, the energy is gone, then the entity can slowly kind of get back in there and do what he was doing, or she, or it, in some cases. And we have a spiritual hierarchy actually for how much we were allowed to do, because you can't be naive when you're working with this part of the spiritual side of investigating. Because there's some that are actually, you just shouldn't mess with. Like if you go to a place and you think it's possibly something inhuman, maybe something even deep or demonic in the place, don't even attempt this, because it's not really going to do much for those. Those ones we actually outreach out to either people, friends of mine in the clergy, an archbishop friend of mine who actually is a demonologist and exorcist down south, and give it in the hands of those. We still monitor the case if it came to that. We'd still kind of follow up with the client, see how it's going, but at that point we'd pull out of our people. We'd send in the people that are more trained to deal with that. It's just smarter altogether, because you can make the situation worse easily. So with this is one of our items that we use for smudging. We put it in here. For the Native American side of things, we also use Christian side as well, but for Native Americans, believe to keep everything as pure as possible. So that's why if you go into a store and you see sage bundled up, it's not wrapped with just zip ties or something like that. It's treated with respect. It has a little cotton string of yarn around it or something that's natural to earth. And so when you are using it, you're supposed to keep it 100% natural, even in everything that you use. This is copper, a natural earth mineral element. And so it's good to do that, because if you burn it in a plastic bowl and whatnot, not to say that it's not going to be effective, but it's just, if you're trying to keep it respectful, you should really keep everything Native Americans would have done it, and keep it as pure as possible, keep it as natural as possible, keep it as tied to earth as you can. So that's just one of these things that we use for that. Okay, let's see. My bag here I carry around too, and with Sagittarius. I still think I am. I didn't go with the new, because I guess they changed I tried to change the zodiac signs recently or something, but I'm still a Sagittarius. And amethyst stones are one of my favorites. I know some of you stopped by the booth. This is that turtle I was telling you about. It's an amethyst turtle. It's really cute. And these things are just a natural healing stone. If you get nervous or have bad dreams, for example, or just feel negative for some reason, sometimes if you just grab a hold of these, you can sometimes feel the energy right off the bat when you use them, especially when you meditate with them as well. This is an angel that I have. It's one of my favorites. That's holding one of these in her hand. At one location, I used this object as a trigger object. I said out loud, I'd asked whoever was there, I said, "Do you like angels?" And we got an EVP played back, "Yes." So, and it fit to the story of what happened there as well, because it was someone who's very religious and liked angels. So, it's a fluorite, kind of like a rainbow greenish stone, and this is a heart. So it's a good energy coming off of this as well. And these things, it's always good to take care of these too, and good ways to purify them, especially when you're getting them from a store and they've been handled by other people. And because it's believed that energies from the other person or people that have touched them can leave their mark. And so if you pick, a bunch of people with negative energy go through a store and they handle this, that can dull this down. So a good way to actually cleanse it, good old-fashioned sunshine. You take these stones out in the sun and let them kind of bask out there in nature for a while. Re-energizes them. And so we definitely try to make time to do that before an investigation that we think might have to have a cleansing or anything like that. We want everything to be as pure as we can for that. Put these guys back in here. And a lot of people don't think about that either, because that goes to buying objects of any sort, especially used objects. Go to yard sales and stuff. We've had cases before where somebody goes, antiques as well, go and they buy something, then they come home and suddenly their house is haunted or they have activities. Those are attachments to items. Similar concept, there's energies there that are attached to the item. Energies can rub off also on stones as well. You can bring a little bit of that home with you. So just something to keep in mind. Okay.
So in a case like that, the person was to sell that piece of furniture, would that also take the spirit away then too?
A lot of times that's a simple fix, but sometimes it will detach and stay in its new home. If it's intelligent, like it might actually like that place a lot. But if it's a residual, which is the difference. Residual is where it's playing itself over and over and over again anyway, so it doesn't really know where it's at. And so if it's attached, that energy's trapped in that piece of furniture, for example. It could move with it if you get rid of the furniture. But if it's intelligent haunting and it draws a inconvenient fondness for you, and it could stay in that place. So, and then this is another example of something that we have too for cleansing. Sea salt also is another item that we use. We haven't had to use it very often because usually our smudging is pretty good and can kind of feel if there's something still there, but there was one in particular we had to use this on because it had a very negative energy there. And really you just use this as a solid line, and it's believed that when you place it down, then the energies or the spirit that might have been there can't cross that barrier, get back over into the area that you had already cleansed. And so thresholds or doorway entrances and stuff like that, we would use this for.
How often do you have to I put some sea salt down by the windows and the doors one year. Am I supposed to put more down like every month or every 6 months, or?
For that, it would just be checking on it. I don't really have a good time frame for it. As long as the barrier is solid, it should be pretty good to go. But I'd always, if you do put it down, but if you do that, then you might as well do a smudging as well.
I do.
Just about
Yeah.
as often too.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, because that's what Native Americans had to do anyway. They cleansed, but they did it frequently.
Yes.
There's a lot of cleansing.
My son says I do it too much.
I don't know if there's such thing as too much. Yeah. So, okay. Then another example here, which I can find on here, so I gotta move on, time's already going by fast, is there's a couple things that we can do. I know some members of my team have different kind of gifts, kind of like snowflakes things. None two of us are exactly alike. We might have a little more expertise in one thing than the other. One is pretty good at premonitions before the location. She's good at getting physical description of the house, the color, the yard, the landscape, and all that kind of stuff. And I asked her to jot it down or go there before she had any knowledgeable aspect of it. So that kind of stuff. And then there's a few other things here. One of them I do is a human dowsing rod, is what it's called. Find the clip here.
After we heard the car door, the first thought for me was the guy left.
I was actually a child right there, that there was no child there, so that was a cool EVP.
Yeah, let's go ahead and we want to try that. Let's try something new. Baseball? Yeah. Not yet. It's a form of a channeling.
Here we go.
Some people call it. It's a form of communication with potential spirits or beings that are in the area. Basically, what this specific one is called, it's been nicknamed the human dowsing rod, basically, where my arms basically are up.
Oh darn.
Which is good for yeah.
So sad.
If the arms are kind of up, and you just have to see how your secret's going on here.
Human dowsing rods. This is something that Eric has told me about this whole time, but he's never done it. I keep telling him, I want to see it, Eric. I want to see you do this human dowsing rod thing, and he'd never do it. Finally, he did it, and it was pretty cool. I mean, you gotta admit.
There's time to try the human dowsing rod. I know Alice pressured me to do this for quite some time. This is part of the spiritual side. It's a form of a channeling, basically, where it's really hard to explain. But I get in a relaxed state, and instead of using actual dowsing rods, which are used to locate energies, and they can respond to fluctuations in electromagnetic field with an actual scientific EMF meter side by side, sometimes the readings have been known to match up to the dowsing rods. I'm still trying to understand it myself, but I've gotten some pretty cool evidence out of it, especially at the school. When we went there, I had some photos that were taken of me while I was doing the human dowsing rod, and there seemed to be a shadow figure moving in over my head.
So it's kind of, the question comes up then, what is that? You know, human dowsing rod, to kind of sum it up, is a form of channeling in a way, and just clear out my mind, as I said on there. Put my hands in the air like this, and what it feels like, honestly, is if you hold two magnets that are saying two positives together or two negatives together, you feel that force. Feels like that on my hand, and then they move around two different directions, and then some activity spikes during that same time, and it's happening. Like my hands go in a certain direction, somebody gets that's close to that direction that they point, start getting chills, or they start feeling uneasy, something like that. So it's still doing a lot more with this to try to figure out if we can figure out something with this, but it's definitely unique. It definitely does bring results, as you can see here. Sometimes I'll pull it out if we don't have much activity going on, and then I'll pull this out, and then more than likely we do get something, at least during this time. So it's one of our unique ways of investigating right there. Put in something else here. I know that, especially the skeptics out there and whatnot, I mean, there's nothing that we can really say or do anyway to change your minds. And so, but to this, you really have to be there, experience it, to really get for yourself if there's any doubts. Because we have equipment going with it, and that's the best way to do it, especially if you're doing the spiritual and scientific, is still keep your science tools going, because it's important for validation purposes. And it's important now also if you have multiple sensitives in your group, that you don't feed off each other. You know, go into a place and be like, oh, I'm getting this man, he's in a black suit. Oh, me too, he's in a black suit and slacks. It's like, oh, that's credible. All right, and this next book on here real quick. Because there's so much focus, and I'll end it here, because this would be a good positive note here to leave you with. There's so much focus on negative. People going out, Hollywood movies mainly focus on negative, demonic, all this kind of stuff. People forget the other side of things, angels, you know, angelic manifestation. And I strongly believe, in case 8 here, which I'll show you a clip from, was one of those moments where angels came out.
First started.
This was in
Yeah,
Indiana.
this was last year. Maybe it, you know, I mean, so Larry, last year we didn't. This one, we were able.
His parents passing and the possibility that his mother was still coming back and visiting the place.
And I think I told you this before, in that other house now, because it would be in those 2 front rooms only. And my mother and father both died in that house. My father passed away in 1954 with a heart attack, and my mother passed away in 1985. Glory to God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Glory to God.
So very powerful. Every time I see that, I get chills. Actually, it's still like I was there. But whole room lit up with this warm, just unconditional love. It's hard to explain. There's so much good out there, and there's so much to live for. And this was an important message of that. Larry was a very important man. He still is. So, but I should leave it open to any questions. If there's any quick ones here, I'm probably running out of time.
Did he know what he was saying to you?
At the time, I wasn't exactly sure. It sounded Latin to me at first, but then I caught on, especially after Clay had told me he's heard that done before, and it was someone speaking in tongues. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, because I've heard that before. I haven't seen it in person. I haven't seen it to me. But a side note on that, too, is that there's actually been brain waves and science done with that when people are speaking in tongues. And there's weird things that go on, different abnormal brain waves that go on in their mind when they're speaking in tongues. So I think there's more to it. But yeah, no, it took me a little moment, but I felt to go with it, so I just kind of let it happen. But I knew after the fact what it was, and very
Then
blessed.
He didn't know exactly what he was saying?
There's
He
different.
doesn't translate into simple language?
There's different views on that. There's some that believe that when you speak tongues, it comes from another place, and the person speaking it may not know what they're saying. And then there's other theories on it that he knew exactly what he was saying. It was still good stuff. I didn't get any negative out of it. Some people are kind of standoffish because they think it sounds strange or something that may be from the other side, negative. But I didn't get anything like that with this one. Yeah.
In either one of those cases where either you do the dowsing or this event here,
Mhm.
do you usually do any digital recording during those sessions as well?
Definitely, yeah, because if we do spiritual, I can't really just do that without the other, because it's harder we're still out there to help find evidence and back that up. And so it's kind of silly to do all this and then not have the science stuff going as well. Because we've got some very fascinating stuff when we have the science part of it going as we're doing these other things. Like you seen, like that picture, for example. If she didn't catch that picture, I probably would have just said, well, I felt something come over my head. It didn't have any visual to help back it up. So it's always good to do that. Yeah.
One issue I have with, of course, all the TV shows about the paranormal is a lot of children. And I noticed when these guys are going into these haunted locations and there's a lot of kids laughing, crying, whatever, I don't see anybody crossing them over or going to the next part of, can you help them instead of leaving them there? Regardless, the reason that they're here is because they're stuck.
Yeah.
Either they think that their family is still there, they're looking for their family, they didn't cross over when they should have. Do you ever cross people over? I mean, some people don't know how to create that right way. Do you do this for them?
And there's so many teams out there that go in there and they only do the science part. They're only there to be like, oh, well, let's see if we can capture evidence. And then they stay there 5, 6, 7 hours, whatever the case is, and then they leave.
Then they
the
leave.
client still lives there.
Right.
But yeah, we've done that before. It was actually in chapter 2. We have to wait for that. It's still in editing. But there's a very good example of that where it was actually somewhat a forced crossover. It's kind of freaky. We were communicating with something else at the time, someone else, I should say, and I was doing one of my things was mental conjuring where random words came to me and I'd say them out loud. And then through the ghost box, we got this, wait, help! And it was like a desperate female sound.
Right.
So we canceled, stopped everything we were doing, focused on that, tried to figure out who it was. Somebody who wanted to be released, somebody who wanted to cross over. They weren't there the whole time. What we figured was when we were doing what we were doing, when you're working with spirit, your aura tends to fluctuate quite a bit.
Right.
And that can be seen. And my theory is that maybe spirits don't see us physically anymore, but they see our light. And so with that said, we were a beacon, so to speak, like a lighthouse, and they saw that, and they came over, or she came over, and kind of was like, finally, somebody's here to help me, somebody who's capable, somebody who can, somebody who pays attention to this. And so I pulled out the candles, I did, and I said a few prayers and whatnot, and the ghost box also synced up to it because it said, I'm going, and a male voice said, let her through. And so it was definitely, that was a creepy investigation anyway. Ashley can back me up on that.
Yeah, it was scary.
Yeah.
to
So we
watch.
do cleansing, smudging, like I had said earlier, but also crossovers if it's needed or if the client feels that's necessary.
What's your take on why the kids never left? I mean, why are so many people stuck here? Why are so many earthbound spirits are here?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
Children, one of the number one reasons I've come across is they're lost. They're lost in a way that they're not with their mom, not with their dad. Somehow there's a separation that occurred. 'Cause sometimes we've gotten EVPs that say, "Mommy?" ? And they seem to be lost and wondering for their parents. And a lot of times, if you go into a place and you have that paternal nature about you, especially with women in here,
Right.
you go in there, and more than likely you're going to draw out children. And I've seen it happen time and time again. And where the guys, especially maybe burlier, the alpha males, they don't come out for them.
So is that good? to send them into the light or try to talk to them to get them to go to the light?
Definitely, I would say it's a case-by-case basis, but it's good to try to communicate with them to figure out what they want. Some of them are happy and they're playful. Like if you've been to Waverly Hills Sanatorium before, I've been there. Little Timmy, he seems very playful. And he'll play with the ball and you know, and toys and stuff like that. But not everyone. And then there's also things you have to keep in mind too, because those that are malicious in nature
Right.
use children as disguises.
Right.
And so
That's
we keep
right.
that. I tell all my investigators keep that in mind too, because it wants you to think it's a little girl.
But it's really
Not be. You know, that's one of the starts of a demonic phase is to gain your trust. So,
It's true.
Sorry,
Sorry,
so
yeah.
didn't mean to wrap it up. I think you can probably still catch Eric back at his booth. Thank you so much for coming in and helping present today. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. All right. Okay. So as you were saying, then you were sharing your thoughts. What did you think of that? You were talking about the aura.
Oh yeah, when you were connecting, when you were speaking, and every time you connected with me, your aura is white, and it spiked all the way to the ceiling. And then as we were coming back down, we'd get quiet, and then again when you connected with me, your aura is white again, boom, right to the ceiling. I mean, it was like zoom, like a
Okay.
jet.
Wow. And so you're saying that it was like you're supposed to be here.
I was contemplating of not coming, and my husband told me, "Oh, you need to go because you'll be more comfortable in there, especially with the experiences you had." And as I was walking around, and all of a sudden I came over to your booth, and you weren't here, but I just felt like I needed to go and see your presentation, and it was just riveting. It was connecting with me in every level.
That's all right.
I just want to check around. Get out of your way.
Okay. All right. Well, tell us a little bit about this event, the name of it, how many years you've done this, and personally as well, how many years that you've been in the paranormal, what gifts that you might have.
Okay. This is the Psychic and Paranormal Expo, and it was on August 18th in Marion, Iowa. And this is our first annual event that we have done this. We had 45 vendors, and we're not even sure how many we had through the door, but we're guessing it was more than 600. So we're going to have to
Wow.
figure out a way to do a count later.
That's very impressive. That number of vendors and the number of people coming through for your first time.
It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I know the community has a huge support for this, and we knew that it would go well, but I had no idea how well it would go.
Yeah.
So we're
Sure,
just
there's
absolutely honored.
a nervousness at some degree where it's like, there probably won't be too many people coming, or be a
Yeah.
flop, or won't make our money back.
Yeah, but we did well.
Did
so.
great. Yeah, that's good.
Personally, I have been doing readings for people for, I think this is my 6th year of doing shows like this for people. Obviously, I've had the gift all my life and just decided to use it about 6 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. Similar kind of thing there, because I've also had gifts for most of my life, not all my life, but it wasn't until I really connected with Jackie Carpenter that she showed me that I could open up and that was okay, because
Right.
the original group I was with, they shunned psychics, they didn't believe in sensitivities.
Yes.
And so I got out of that, and then it really opened up, and then I had to learn along the way how to close it just enough so I didn't have to have the voices all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So-
Learning to control it and knowing
Mhm.
when to use it, when to cut it off is
Yeah.
very important.
Exactly. There's some people that are like, oh, I want to do that. Well, there's pros and cons to it, you know.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like the empathic ability, walking in a place and feeling their chest pain and then starting to heave over and walk in a room looking ridiculous. But no, it's good. But thank you for having us out. and-
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming, and we plan on doing this again next year, so
All right.
hope to see you then.
Sounds good. Probably be here again.
Thank you so much.